get out there, catch more fish.
Hey guys, Mike here from BinyaOutDoors. I have a special guest on this episode. I'm very excited to bring this man on. I've been talking to him a lot. You guys saw
Oh, I'm
him from my
special, all right.
Exactly. You guys saw him on my Springfield Sports Show video, but I'll let him introduce himself. Bobby.
How we doing, guys? I'm Bobby Roast Beef. I'm the owner and host of Jigs and Bigs podcast. Perhaps you've listened to us. Maybe you've gotten written up at work because you've listened to something that totally inappropriate for the workplace. But I'm here with Mike, BinyaOutDoors, and we're gonna have ourselves a little bit of a talk. We're gonna be pretty fun. I think this is gonna be pretty good.
So I wanted to bring him on because if you guys have been watching my videos, especially for the last year, I discovered the Jigs and Bigs podcast because I needed something to listen to while I was fishing. And I wanted something that wasn't music. I just needed something to zone out and started listening to it. And I discovered this series of tournaments that they started to run. And it was something that captivated me because it just had this extra appeal. It was something that was a little bit different than what everybody else is doing. So I wanted to bring Bobby on to talk about this because they're doing a big push this year to try to grow this thing, but also because I really think that this is an important thing for beginning anglers to be able to get their feet wet into the tournament fishing world, as well as it's a lot of fun. So I'm going to let Bobby just talk about his tournament series.
Awesome, man. Thanks, Mike. It's so the tournament series, we've been doing this. Now this is our third year that we've been doing it. We started in 2020. We partnered with an organization called Chronic Trips, and they wanted to do an online multi-species style tournament, including saltwater. And a lot has changed since then. I mean, we started working with them immediately, and it was really great. The feedback was awesome. We had a blast doing it, and we grew out of that. Sean had kind of changed and adapted some of the initial scoring, and it's like I said, we've seen a lot of changes. So the scoring is one thing that's really kind of changed, and it was up to last year we kind of nailed it. We really did. And what we started doing last year was alternating months. We would do 1 month where it was Chronic Trips, where we would include saltwater. And then the next month was straight up freshwater, and it was under the Jigs and Bigs name. And the scoring is the same for both of them. And now it actually, the way it works out, it's more like a scavenger hunt than it is a traditional tournament. And that's sort of the way that we're trying to brand it moving forward. So, now one of the major changes that happened with scoring is that it has more impact on your progress to catch as many different species as it is to get a lunker. So as long as you catch, we'll say a yellow perch, a chain pickerel, a largemouth bass, a smallmouth bass, any variety of trout, panfish, crappie, muskie, all these, the most popular sport fish are listed. You'll get a point each for having those in there. And if you get the lunker in that category, you're only getting an additional point for it. So it's not like you're losing these points because, maybe you've only got, a 14-inch largemouth or something along those lines. And there's strategy with this too. It's a whole lot of fun. And it was born initially, I wanted to do this so that I could engage with folks that listen to our show. It's awesome if I could go out and fish with everybody, but not everybody's located in the Northeast up here. So we've had, folks from up in Michigan, folks from Texas, we've had folks in Florida, of all ages too, get involved. And it's kind of a great setup. It's awesome for anybody who is a beginner competitive angler, or somebody who doesn't really give a shit really about tournament angling.
Yep.
Like, this is just a good way to kind of like do it in a lighthearted fashion. That's a lot of fun, but it's also really awesome if you are a serious tournament angler, because now when you catch that chain pickerel, if you're entered in our tournament, now it's not just a wasted bycatch. You can enter that for something, and it's got a little bit more value. So it's really, really interesting. And you can look at some of the guys that like have been just killing it. Like last year specifically, we call him Jerry Multi-Species House. He's a local guy, and he's a hammer when it comes to getting a wide variety of species. And he'll just get out there and put in the work and make it happen. And anybody can do this. That's the beauty of it. And it's really all inclusive. So you can do it if you're fishing from the bank. You can do it if you're fishing from a boat, a kayak, a John boat. It doesn't matter. You can get out there, and you could actually charter a trip, if you wanted, and go out and catch fish. I mean, fantastic. You can do it all. So it's really kind of a cool way to bring your fishing and kind of almost gamify it in a way, to kind of keep it fun. And this is another thing too. If you're a content creator and you're doing this, this is a great way to just have a month's worth of content that you can create. And then, it's you fishing and networking at the same time. Quite literally, like fishing and networking. So
I do it.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. You got into it, what was it, like September? I think you got into it,
It was
September and
towards
October?
it was towards the end of the year. It was right
Yeah.
before I was on your show. I discovered it and I was
Yep.
checking it out. And what's funny is the reason why I joined your series was because I was fishing in Rhode Island. So I was in a
Yeah.
tournament called the Big Bass Challenge. So I was having to go to Rhode Island and fish Halloween weekend. And I wanted to
Oh, okay.
practice. But there
Gotcha.
wasn't anything other than KBF Challenge Series,
Yeah.
like the state challenge series.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to pay $50 for a membership to practice. And I was looking for honestly
That's a
inexpensive
good point. I never
tournaments to
even thought about
practice.
that. Yeah.
So I was like, I'll just use this because it's a great way to practice. And I'm going to do a video about
Huh.
this, guys, later. I'm not going to go into heavy detail, but the catch, picture, release style that this tournament lends to, like Bobby was saying, bank fishing and everything. You can do it everywhere, but
Yeah.
there is let's say, muscle memory to taking a fish out of a net, putting it on a measuring board, and getting that picture right. So I
Yep.
wanted to practice before I got down to Rhode Island where the money
Smart.
was on the line. So
Yep.
I was like, I'll just enter into this. And I'm like, it looks kind of cool. And I didn't even understand the scoring. Honestly,
Yeah.
I just had no, I'd listened to the podcast and I was like,
Yep.
they have a tournament series. I will say, guys, if you are highly competitive like me, you're
Yep.
gonna laugh at yourself. I actually sent Bobby a message because I spent 2.5 hours one day trying to catch a
Nice.
bluegill.
Yeah.
Like, you literally will look at this thing and you go, man, I need to catch a crappie
Yeah. I got to
because I'm
get an
not.
8-inch crappie or an 8-inch bluegill. You know what I
And
mean?
it's the funniest thing ever. Like Bobby said,
Yep.
the scavenger hunt is probably the most accurate representation of what
For
this
sure.
is. It's not a highly competitive, you need to catch a 5-pound bass. It's literally, you could actually theoretically not have the biggest of anything, but if you caught one of every species,
You'd be
you're
in
going to
the
be in the
running.
top,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
not winning. And that's
Yeah,
what's
depending
cool
on
is you don't have to catch
how
it.
it plays out. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like as long as you get a diverse array of fish that you're catching, like it's nice and easy because then you've got a guaranteed point in every single category. Doesn't matter if it's the second biggest one or if it's the smallest. It's a point no matter what. If it's the lunker, awesome, you got an extra point. Sometimes it comes down to that,
Yeah.
but it's like it really does have more to do with the variety. We have some guys who just enter bass constantly. So they have largemouth, smallmouth, and then in their NE5, because you can put multiple species in the NE5. So you want to keep your largest fish there to do well. I mean, I say you want to put your largest fish there, but like you want to put the species that are, kind of killing it.
Well, the strategy too, it comes into it. So that's actually the other thing that's really weird. You'll catch a, say, 18-inch bass here in Vermont.
Yep.
You have a largemouth that's 17 inches, but you can catch 19 inches at this other body of water all day. So you have this like mental battle with yourself. Do I put that in my NE5?
That's the strategy. Yeah.
Or do I put it, so like that's part of it is like it like Bobby said, it gamifies fishing. And honestly, one of the things that used to annoy me a lot, and it's funny because you wouldn't know this from my videos, but I catch a ton of rock bass.
Oh yeah.
That means something with this tournament. You catch a trout, it means something. You catch a pickerel, it means something. Like it literally, instead of just catching this fish and be like, hey, I got a fish, I'm trying for bass, I don't care about this thing.
Yep.
One of the funniest things I ever had happen to me with this tournament, and I got I actually was watching the video, tried to make some content the other day. I spent 3 hours trying to catch a over 8-inch yellow perch.
Oh yeah.
Because I was behind in that category.
Yeah.
So I finally got a perch, got this thing in my hand.
Yep.
And I'm going to put it on my measuring board, and he squirts out of my hand and goes under my seat in my kayak. So I'm like
scrambling to get this poor fish that's like,
how am I going to get this fish out of here and weigh it? Normally that would have been like, I'll just flood my kayak and shoo him out. So I'm pedaling like a madman to shore. There's people on shore bank fishing. So they see me coming in hot with this kayak, every once in a while flooding my kayak so that this fish doesn't suffocate while I'm trying to get to shore. slide into the bank, pull my drive, jump out, flip my seat up, throw a measuring board on the ramp, and throw a 7-inch yellow perch on a measuring board and take a photo. And the eyes, it was just like, these guys are like, what is wrong with this guy? And I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's
hold on.
crazy.
I've got to explain this to you, because I felt like I needed to explain it. And actually, I think some of them said that they were thinking about signing up because of the explanation, because they're like, they literally saw me pumped to throw a 7-inch yellow perch on a measuring board, to the point where I was panting when I got to shore to get this thing measured and entered.
That's
And
awesome.
that's what this tournament does, is
Yeah.
it creates, if you're highly competitive, it creates that, like, I need to go find crappie. I need to go find a trout. I need to go find a catfish. If you're not highly competitive and you want to just fish from a bank, from a boat, that's the thing about the whole way the scoring system works, is you literally could catch most of those species, especially here in Vermont, on a stream bank. There's a lot of those species in all of our waters. So,
and there are, it's funny because like there's gar on that list. There's redfish on that list. We put it under drum because redfish are a drum, and like there are some species that you're not going to catch in the Northeast, but also you're probably not going to get a northern pike down in Texas. It's like it's a bit more of a challenge. So it's cool because it gives you it kind of gives you like a reason to go out and fish. Like it's one thing to go out. Like I love fishing just because I think it's like cathartic, it's relaxing, it clears my head, it does a lot for me, like health wise. I love it. But it's really kind of nice when I go out and I've got an agenda. Like there's something there where I'm like, oh, I got to catch this. Oh, well, look at this. We managed to get a chain pickerel, and that's a good sized chain pickerel. Well, let's measure this sucker, and there's one thing this year that we are doing that we haven't done before, and we're streamlining the process for, especially for new anglers that haven't done this before, because you do need a very specific measuring board. You need to have a standard with your measuring board. So like, your regular bump board that you pick up at like Walmart or something like that is not going to count. We need to have something that's got a standard to it. And catch is what is becoming the standard across all CPR style tournaments. So naturally we lean in that direction. The good thing is about catch is that they have a wide variety of different size boards and different materials. Like that one right there is the catch carbonite. So we have it now. So if you need a board, you can now, register for the tournament and purchase your board and have it shipped right from Three Bells.
Nice.
It's pretty cool. It makes it really, really nice and streamlined.
You know what's funny about the catch board, guys? So I will say, if you're going to do this tournament, though, get the 32-inch one. Because the 26-inch one here in Vermont, you can get some bigger than 26-inch pike. And I'm actually thinking about upgrading. For sure. Because of his tournament, I'm going to have to buy another catch board because I want to be able to measure the bigger pike, because I'm maxed out at 26.
And there are other situations too. Like this is a good example where if you have a 26-inch board, like I've got a 26-inch board, but let's say I catch a carp and it's, 30 some inches, and I put that, well, basically what you do is you put the fish on the board. Okay. And then you take a tape measure. This is why I always carry a tape measure. And actually, any of your listeners, you guys should all do this too. Keep a tape measure, like a tailor's tape, like something that you can roll up. Because if you catch a giant and you want to do a replica, you need to get measurements of the girth and the length and everything. And that piece of what do you call it? That piece of measuring tape is going to help you get that done. But, because you have the standard board and the mouth is up against the board, the mouth is closed, that it's 26 inches. You're definitely going to get the 26 inches if it goes over. But if you have a measuring tape, you can line it up nice and even so that they're there, and it will take the measurement off of the other one. And some people have done this, I think, with even like their paddles. Like you have a reference, and that's what you need, is you need that reference point of what the catch board is. This is where the start is, because it's easy to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's nuts, man.
It's funny because I think in my mind it creates, and that's because I'm highly competitive. So if you're highly competitive, think about this too, is it creates weird rivalries too. Because if you catch a bigger fish than the guy that has the largemouth, you knock him down. So now he has 1 point and you have 2 points. So not only do you get you can steal points from people. So you're like, man, I can't beat him. I'm not going to catch a bigger pike. Maybe you think that, or this is not possible in your waters, but I could catch a bigger crappie. So I'm going to go crappie fishing and knock him down.
Yep.
And that's what
Exactly.
happens is you end up like the scavenger hunt thing really truly does mean what it says. Like you end up like I've literally sent messages on Facebook like, hey guys,
Oh
where
yeah.
can I catch big crappie? And it's weird because everybody's like, dude, you have a bass fishing YouTube channel. Why are you searching for crappie? Or
Yeah.
like I literally talked to a buddy that knows where there's big bluegill.
Oh, for
And
sure.
normally I wouldn't give a crap about a big bluegill,
Yeah.
but this
But hey,
tournament
a
series
point's a
makes me
point.
want
2
them.
points could be 2 points. You know,
Yep.
it makes a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you been doing any fishing yet? You guys got open water down there or no?
We do have open water now. It's cold as shit. But I've been out. I went out, I think, on Friday, and I was gonna go out today. That didn't happen. But I think tomorrow I might go out too. It's all been bank sends for the most
Yeah.
part. I like to kind of let the water get to, you know, the high 40s or so before I throw the kayak in. But it's coming soon. You know, I got the itch.
It's
What
like
about you?
mental health. It's mental health for me. It's
Oh,
like
for
I
sure.
want so I was actually supposed to go ice fishing like a
Yep.
month ago,
Yep.
and I woke up and it's weird. Like I don't know if it was instinct or what, but something told me not to go.
Yeah.
So I didn't. I was literally up at 4 a.m. packing my stuff, had
Yep.
everything ready the night before, and in my mind I was like, and this is like probably 2 weeks after those guys in Champlain
Oh
had
yeah.
like
That's
rescue.
right.
I'm sure you
Yep.
guys probably even heard about that. It was a big thing. Like they ended up having to like bring an ice breaking boat and search and
Hmm.
rescue out. And it was just like this year has been the worst because I was planning on trying to make like ice fishing content, try to do stuff like that this year. And
For sure.
we got honeycomb ice, we got inconsistent weather. So I have yet to go out
Yep.
at all. And unfortunately, it's getting to the point where I think I might be coming to your state,
Yeah.
honestly, to do some fishing.
Dude, I'm
Um,
telling you, like, go to the Cape.
yeah,
Go out to the Cape. Like, is it a ride? Absolutely. You got to commit a full day to it.
yep,
Leave super early because it'll take you a while to get there. But then, you know, by the time you're
yep,
out on the water, that water's had a chance to warm up a little bit. The
yep.
Cape is great for that, you know.
Yeah, Nate was telling me he made me jealous, honestly, when I was talking
Oh,
to
I
him
believe
last
it.
Sunday. Nate
He's been
Shaggy,
out all winter.
yeah,
Yeah, all winter
yeah, he was
long.
telling me.
And he's been slaying it out on the ice too.
Yep. Yeah, he was telling me that he was out, and I was like, no. He's like, yeah, dude, it's all open water down here, and I
Yeah.
was like, and then I have my tournament director. I'm gonna be doing Slay Nation
Yeah.
tournaments, so he just built a john boat. He did built like mini bass boat out of a john
Yeah.
boat kind of deal, and he's been like talking to me a little bit, and he's like, hey, I'm thinking about going to Connecticut or Mass in a couple weeks, and I was like, because I don't want to do it in the kayak.
Yeah.
It's cold in a kayak. When that cold water hits that cold kayak, it's
Yeah.
and you're that close to the water and the mist and stuff. It's just it's
I'm
cold.
curious, how do you prepare for cold water fishing when you're in the kayak? Like,
It,
what's your system? I'll go through my system too,
okay.
like, and tell you what it is. But how do you go
Are we
and deal with
talking
cold
to
water?
deal with the conditions or deal with the baits or both?
I'm talking more about like how you go, like what you're wearing to keep yourself safe on the water, like that.
So to be honest, you
Yep.
probably shouldn't do what I do because it's not
Sure.
as safe.
Yep.
I have hunting bibs that are like waterproof material with like a
Yep.
fur lining in them, and
Okay.
I wear those underneath a pair of actually Grundon's like waterproof bibs
Uh-huh.
to keep water from getting on them, and they're like PVC style. They're
Oh yeah,
like the
those
ones that
Grundens are awesome.
they're like the ones that like they use on
Yeah.
Deadliest Catch and all that, like the
Yep.
stuff that's
Yep.
made to be rugged. And what it does is that PVC traps the heat in. And the thing with those is they both have it's a safety thing in my mind is they both have
Yeah.
quick disconnects for the bibs. So if I were to hit the water, I could just snap those off and they would come off of me
And they
and
would
not
come off.
fill up
Yeah.
with water.
Yep.
Because I know guys that have worn waders and that's
Yeah.
a bad idea because you become an anchor with
Yeah.
waders. So
It's interesting, man. Like what are you wearing for your on your feet? Because like, are you able to launch your boat without getting in the water?
I haven't mastered that.
Yeah,
I
like
haven't figured it out.
my
I
boat
haven't
is
figured it out yet.
so my kayak is the Native Titan 13.5. It's a giant. It's
Okay.
a 14-foot boat.
Right.
It's absolutely enormous. And to move it around, I use the Boondocks landing gear, which
Yep.
are awesome. They're not an ideal fit for them, but
Right.
actually Sean had helped me I think it was last fall, retool them a little bit to add a little bit more rigidity to
Yep.
them. So when I get out there, I go and I back my boat into the water, and I go out, and I can't do this without getting into like about up to my knees.
Yep.
Generally up to my knees, I have to get wet.
Yep.
So my whole thing is that I want to be wearing something that's going to keep my feet and the lower end of my legs as dry as possible. So what I've done is I'm a big fan of, like, because I like to camp in the winter and cold
Yep.
months and hike and stuff like that. So I'm a big proponent of always have a base layer on, like a
Yep.
synthetic or a wool base layer on.
Yep.
And so what I'll do is I'll wear that thermal underwear, the whole 9 yards, everything, and then I'll just put a pair of shorts on over it for the pockets,
Yep.
so I can keep like my keys and stuff and whatever it is that I need that's in my pockets,
Absolutely.
to have some storage in there. And then I have these Frog Togs, they're hip waders, and they're insulated. They were
Okay.
super cheap. They were like $70. I mean,
Okay.
they're not ideal. They're not the best fitting things in the world. And like, yeah, when you're out there in the direct sun, your feet are like, it's disgusting, but I take them off and I can empty them and drain the sweat that's been building up in there. It's terrible. So like all winter this year, I took 4 or 5 of those silica gel packets, threw them in there, let them dry. They're hanging up. Everything's great. So I use that for my legs, and generally it's fine. Then what I'll do is I have a base layer on that I'll wear. I'll generally put on some type of a synthetic t-shirt or like even a performance shirt on over that. Exactly, like something like that. Then I put on a mid layer, which is usually a synthetic style hoodie. So like I've got one from AFCO, I've got one from Nor'easter, I've even got one from Hooks and Hoodlums. And I'll put that on over that. Then I put my PFD on. And if it's really cold, I'll throw a knit cap on. And I'll do okay. I can get 4 or 5 hours out, out on the water, and it's okay. Like I usually will change a hat, so that way, like if I'm sweating, when the
Yep.
sun's really beating down, I'll swap that out so I'm not like,
Absolutely.
I don't have a soaked hat, but then I'll put it inside out and it dries out real quick, so it's that works out good. But for me, that's always been the biggest thing is like I can't launch my boat without getting my feet wet. Like it's
I
going to happen. So I gotta have something on.
For Rhode Island, I bought the NRS, the wet
Those are
boot or
awesome.
whatever. They
Yes. You
are.
like
They
them?
really are. So they don't work. They work really good until it's real, real cold. When it gets real, real cold,
Yeah.
then what happens is no matter what. See, the problem with me too is my kayak, the way I am, I don't want to say over the limit on the weight, but I'm
Sure.
close.
Yeah.
So my kayak doesn't drain very well.
Yeah. I hear you,
So I
dude.
always have about 2, 3 inches of water in my kayak,
Yep.
and my feet. The weird thing about the NRS boots is that if you don't get them wet, your feet will get cold in them because of the way they're designed to be wet. They're like a wetsuit
They're
material.
neoprene, right?
Yeah, they're literally
Yeah.
the same type of stuff that like your wetsuits are made out of. So it's
Yep.
supposed to get wet, so your body heat heats the water, which creates an
Yeah.
insulating layer.
Yep.
My feet did get cold in those, and to be honest, I've worn like mud boots and used mud
Oh, okay.
boots. So
Yeah.
what I do is I got the winter ones that go like 3/4 knee boots, and I roll
Yes.
them down.
Oh, okay. Oh, all
So
right.
so you take them and you can actually roll it's probably
The
not good
PVC.
for it,
Yeah.
but you just roll it out and pull it down so you can make almost like Hook makes them, Tough makes all the like those little like
The
3/4
little,
like
like, the
ankle
mini
boots.
ones.
So I
Yep,
basically make
exactly.
those out of mucks
Yeah.
because then if I have to get out, I
Yeah.
can flip them up to step on the
Yep.
shore, and then I've got a, knee-high boot.
You've got it to be able to put up there. No,
I
that
can
makes
just roll
sense.
them back
That
up,
makes
and they're
sense.
warmer, but the problem is, like you said, the issue with those is
Yeah.
I bought those for hunting. Those are rated for, like, 20 below.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'm not fishing in that cold of weather, and when you're
Yeah,
pedaling
exactly.
around and you're a big guy,
You're
you
gonna
like you
you're gonna
said, you
burn it
can
off.
pour them out.
Yeah.
They're wet.
Yep.
And the insulation in them is insulation, so they get wet.
They
So,
get it holds that water, and then
I've been
it's a pain to dry them. You almost need 2 pairs, like, one to just
Yep.
sit and dry.
Yeah,
It's kinda nuts.
it's the cold weather thing is funny too because, like, I I never used to fish this early as
Yeah, me
before I
neither.
started making content. But then now COVID is actually what really, I wanna say, ruined me, but actually to me it's like a benefit, but, like,
Yeah.
that's when I was like, "I need fishing." Like,
Oh
it's a
yeah.
mental health thing for me.
Yep.
It's like, this is what I do to wind down at the end of the week. And I have a very supportive wife that I literally will leave at daylight and come back at dark. Like, I'm
Yeah.
gone all
She's into
day
it. That's
and
awesome.
she knows I'm making content. And
Yep.
honestly, to like bring it back around, that's actually why one of the reasons why your tournament series has helped me is as a
Yeah.
content creator, there's days where you just don't catch bass. Like, I know that it looks
For
like on
sure.
video, everybody's like, oh man, he always catches bass every time he goes out. No, you just don't see the 16 hours prior because
Hey, that's
I'm
exactly
not
it.
gonna put a video up on my channel of me casting and reeling for 4 hours because you're
Yep.
not gonna watch it.
Yeah.
But when I don't catch fish, what I do is I literally bring night crawlers in my kayak and bobbers. And I've actually done the funniest thing I've done is I actually bring a jig fishing rod, like ice fishing jig rod
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
with the spinning reel,
Yep. Oh yeah.
and I put a bobber on it and I'll stuff it in my tank while in my kayak
Yep.
and I fish for bluegill with it because
That's
it's easy
awesome.
to stash that in your kayak. So if you want
Oh
to catch
yeah.
perch or
It's not one
bluegill,
additional rod that you have to bring. That's like
yeah,
actually a really good idea.
it's kind of a sneaky little trick. You just throw one of the
Yep.
little bobbers on it. You have a regular snell, the eagle claw hook.
Yep.
I have night crawlers with me that I throw in my cooler or whatever I'm bringing with me. And then
Yeah.
when I'll stop and be like, you know what, I'm not catching bass. I'll pull up the app. I'll look at where I'm at in the tournament and I'll go, you know what? I bet there's bluegill over in that lily pad field. I'll go over, I'll
Exactly.
anchor down and I'll just relax. I'll just cast out a bobber on my little mini rod.
Yep.
And what's funny is I almost caught, and I know everybody always like overestimates the size, but I had a bass one time. I swear it was a 5 pounder.
Yep.
So I actually had these little tiny, Berkeley makes the War Pig Junior, and
Yep.
they're
They
like
do.
crappy lipless.
Oh yeah.
And I was
Super
using
like
that little
micro size.
that little jig rod, and I
Yep.
was like whipping, like I was like baseball outfielder trying to launch this thing because there's no weight to it and it's not really a reel made to cast.
And it's so
And
whippy
I
that it'll just
literally
yeah.
had hooked the biggest bass I had caught in like 2 weeks
No kidding.
on this little jig rod, and I got him to the boat and he shook it off because the hooks were so freaking small that they couldn't
Oh
even
yeah.
really get through
Yep.
the meat of his mouth. But it was I was so pissed because I was like, if I could have caught a fish like this on video with
Oh,
this
that'd be
little
amazing.
freaking
Yeah.
rinky dink rod, then that thing was bent to the freaking reel. Like,
Oh, I'm
I
sure
don't
it
know how I
was.
didn't break it.
Was the
I
drag
actually
just
heard,
screaming?
oh man, it was,
Yeah.
so what I did is I kind of cheated. So I actually used I had an old Daiwa G-Shock reel,
Okay.
and it was like a little one, but it was a real small size spinning reel. So
Like a
it's really like,
100 size or
yeah, it's
1000
like
or
a
something?
crappy
Yeah.
reel
Yep.
basically. So it's a little bit more robust because those actual jig fishing reels don't have
The
the
ice fishing ones
drag you
they're
need to
so
catch
small.
like a, they're because the fish aren't as active in the winter, so they're not
Yeah.
fighting typically as hard as a summertime bass. So I switched out the reel and I actually ran like, I think it was like 6 pound or 8 pound Mr. Crappy, like that camo
Yep.
Mr. Crappy line. So I had enough power there to catch the fish, but I was just like panicking because I was like, I think that's why I lost the fish, honestly, because when he got closer to the boat, I was like, I don't know how to finesse a fish with this long of a rod.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Exactly.
with a
That's
regular
all net
rod, you kind of like do this,
at
but I'm like, I'd literally have
yeah.
to do this to get the rod over the
At that
edge.
point, yeah, you can't boat flip with that thing. It's all
No.
net. It's all net. You got it. You
Yep.
got a net, using something that delicate.
But yeah, and that's the thing is like the winter time for me is a new game, even the
Yep.
fall, because I used to hunt. So I actually stopped hunting because of
Yep.
fishing, because I'd actually rather be out on the water
Yeah.
in October than
Then in the
hunting
tree stand. Yeah.
because honestly there's a lot less competition. Up
I hear
here,
that all the time. All the time.
October 1st, those
Yep.
boat ramps clear out.
Yep. They clear
I
out
have
and the
the whole
fishing
lake
gets
to
really
myself.
good. Yep. It's nice. It definitely is. Like I would love to hunt. I really would. I just don't have the time for it. And I know
That's
to
me.
do it and do it right, it takes time. To go and half-ass it and say, oh, I'm gonna go, I mean, I used to be so into archery. I
Yep.
have my bow. It's over here, and I'm
Yep.
like, I target shoot. I haven't shot in years, but for me, that's enough to scratch that itch. Like it's just when it comes to hunting, it's just so much additional work that right now I'm not 100% sure I've got the time for.
It's so one thing about that is
Yep.
it's actually you can equal it to fishing,
Yeah.
but the problem is, to be fair, if you find grass, you find lily pads, there's probably some sort of species of fish in there.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
With deer, there might be deer in that
Yeah.
cornfield. There
Oh
might
yeah.
not.
Yeah.
And the problem with deer is deer, the longer the hunting season goes on, they start becoming nocturnal. So then
Yep.
you've got to move around and find them, and you have to spend that time. So if you're
Exactly.
really and I could be completely wrong, and I know guys that do both, but if you're really a hardcore passionate fisherman, the time that you're catching the biggest fish when they're putting
Yep.
that feed bag on
Yeah.
is when you should be scouting for deer hunting.
Oh yeah.
So you have to I work 40 hours a week. I have
Yeah.
Saturday
Exactly.
and Sunday to fish.
Yep.
So I either can fish or scout for deer.
Yeah.
And I choose to fish because I enjoy it more.
I hear you,
That's
man.
my thing.
Just getting out in that kayak is cathartic.
It is.
There's something really, 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 really good for you about just getting in that little boat. So
One of the best
I hear you.
one of the best stories I have for that is I had my truck, a young kid in a little Honda CRV basically
Yep.
T-boned me in my truck.
Okay.
He hit me in a CRV so hard that he spun my Ram Eco Diesel 90 degrees.
Holy shit. How fast is he going?
That's what's weird. He was at an intersection. I was going 50 and he was shooting across.
Okay.
So he only came 40 yards, 30 yards before he hit me.
Gotcha.
So he must have just thought he could shoot the gap between cars. He
Maybe.
hit me on my driver's side rear tire in my truck
Yep.
bed and literally flipped me. Now, luckily,
Jesus.
I'm that redneck kid that had a truck in high school that used to go do donuts in the parking lot before school. So I counter steered it back straight and was fine.
Yep.
So my truck's down. Literally, he hit me so hard that they had to pull my truck up onto the wrecker and the wheels weren't spinning.
Oh, I
Because
believe
he
it.
shifted my axles over.
Yeah.
So my truck's in the shop. So I'm like, it was just a bad week, and I'm like, I need to go fishing. So my wife at the time had a Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Yep.
I made her buy a Cherokee with a hitch because of stuff like this. I could take my kayak trailer still with this cheap.
Yep.
Literally, screw it. I'm taking the wife's car. She was okay with it. She knew I needed to just clear my head and get.
Yeah, you needed some time. Yeah.
I hit a fucking coyote with her
Shut
car
up.
40 yards from my house.
Shut the hell up. Are you serious, man?
Literally driving my kayak.
Oh my God.
And I will admit, and I'm probably going to get in trouble because the state of Vermont has a hand law. I have a mount that my phone's up on my thing.
Yep.
And I'm literally recording, hey guys, I had a really bad day. I got in a car accident yesterday. You'll notice I'm not in my truck. I'm heading to the water to clear my head and boom, boom. Well, over the fucking coyote, he went under my trailer, launched my trailer, and I wrecked this dog. But I also smashed out the bottom of the ground effect on the car.
Oh,
and
yeah.
literally pulled over, called my wife, and I was bawling. I was just like, I lost it because it was just all the stress hit me.
All at one time. Yeah.
And I'm like, she's like, is the car okay? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah. And my wife, knowing me, goes, then go fishing.
Yeah.
And I went fishing. I caught 4, 5, maybe.
Yep.
But everything was fine. Once I got that first bass, and it was like a 8-incher.
A dink. Yeah.
But holding that bass in my hand, cleared all the debt, and I was fine. And that's why I love fishing, and that's actually why I stopped hunting, because I was like, I never got that from hunting. And I hunted when I was a kid. I hunted every day after school in Vermont. It was not a big thing to have your rifle in the backseat of your truck.
Oh yeah, no, that's how it is in Vermont. Yeah,
it was. I mean, honestly, the college I went to, they actually would check
in Western Mass. It's kind of like that too in some spots.
Yeah, literally VTC up until probably not so much recently with current political environment, but back in the day, Vermont Technical College on their brochure said you could hunt on campus.
Well, they have that much land, huh?
So that because they have a dairy management program, so they own farms. So literally, security met you at the entrance of the campus, and they would check your guns. They had a little geo tracker.
Yep.
They'd fold the seat down. They'd lay all the guns out. They would put them in a gun safe in security office. And then at 5 o'clock in the morning, they'd meet you out there with a folding table, and you'd take your gun and you'd go hunt, and then you'd come back and check in with them, and they take it off campus.
That's pretty fucking
cool,
man.
That's the state I live in. So but I got really into hunting for a long time, and then the hunting is not as good here, and it's hard to find deer. and not bragging, but I usually can find a fish. And
Yeah,
local
exactly.
species, if I don't find a fish, I know I can find a bluegill. I know I can find a perch.
Yep.
And it's became like a mental thing. So wintertime has been rough for me
Oh, I
because
believe it.
I go from 16 hours a day Saturday and 16 hours a day Sunday to sitting here. That's actually why I started the live stream, because I wanted to at least
Exactly.
talk fishing.
Yep. Yeah,
So
it's something. It's something. It kind of scratches that itch. It's kind of funny, man. Like you talk about, like, and we talked about Vermont before, like when you were on
Yep.
Jigs and Bigs.
Yep.
Like I had Vermont all wrong. I really did. Like, I mean, most people, when you go to Vermont, you're thinking fly fishing because there's so many rivers and streams everywhere. And
Orvis.
it was like summer of 2020, and like we have a group of friends who was like in the throes of the pandemic. We have a group of friends that were like, you know what? Let's get away for the 4th of July. You know, everybody knows everybody super duper well. Everybody's, you know, being careful. Like, let's go, and we'll go and stay, and you know, we'll go up here. And we're outside of Manchester, Vermont, and in Manchester, there's the National Fly Fishing Museum, which was
Yep.
freaking closed. I wanted to
Yeah.
check it out so badly, but it was closed, just to check it out. You know,
I
and
want to
I
say
would.
Orvis has a headquarters down there too.
Yes, they do. I think you're right.
So,
And I went over and I was looking at, I think it was Fish Brain, and I'm looking at just these tiny little ponds. And I don't even know that I had business being out on this property necessarily. Like I went and I did my due diligence to look and see if it was posted anywhere, if there were any signs. And I went and I fished. I caught a handful of like rock bass, but I probably went to like 4 or 5 ponds, and like most of them I couldn't access. Most of them were, you know, there was nothing there. So I'm like, what does this state have? What is it, just Champlain? Like what is in here for me to go fish? And after talking with you and talking with Ellie, I've started to realize that Vermont actually has a whole lot more. And I'm looking forward to fishing Vermont this year.
Yep.
Significantly. So
What's crazy about Vermont is I live here.
yeah.
And I went on Fishing Game's website. And what's weird about, and it's a rural state thing. So keep in mind, if you're not from Vermont, you may not understand this, but we have boat launches are state parks.
Yeah.
So
okay.
it might be 10-car parking lot.
Yeah.
But they own that spot, and that's
Yep.
all they own. But they don't have an address. There's no one that lives necessarily next to that ramp. So
Exactly.
you can't Google map the boating access on Lake Bomazine.
No.
You need to know the name of it. And
Of
a
the
lot
state
of it,
park. Yeah.
and what's funny about it is the name on the website isn't even the
Yep.
name we call it.
That happens a lot too in like some remote areas where you're like the locals have a name for a spot.
Yep.
And you're like, but I'm looking up on the map and it's not coming up. What
Yep.
the hell is this? So sometimes that's just how it is.
You'll hear guys talk about Float Bridge on Lake Bomazine, right?
Yep.
So Float Bridge is literally where they used to have a floating bridge on the road. The road is called Float Bridge Road.
Oh, okay.
That's called Green Dump is one of them, and then the
Green
other
Dump.
one, Green Dump, is literally the name that we call it. But the name of
That's
the actual
awesome.
access is
The Green Mountain
the
State. It's
Thomas
Green Dump, man. I freaking love
Angelica
it.
Memorial access. Like they'll like literally let people like name accesses after like their relatives. Like they'll donate money and they get the name at like a memorial. But we call it Green Dump.
That's
And then
freaking
there's
hilarious.
literally another one, Float Bridge, that's like Kehoe.
I'm gonna take you out fishing at Green Dump.
Green Dump. Yeah, exactly. Like we have
I had
places
some
that
beef and broccoli one time and had a Green Dump.
yeah, see, exactly. So, and there's a lot of places that like
oh god.
there's a bunch of accesses that the only way to find them is to know the GPS coordinates of them.
Yeah.
And in Vermont, I suck at like directions anyways, because we don't have the corner of blank and blank. We have Fred's old barn. You take a right and you go down the dirt road, and then there's a tree that got hit by lightning. You take a left there, and that's where the boat ramp is. That's how you find stuff here.
Yeah. And it's tough. That's one of those situations where like you gotta know somebody.
Yep.
You know, you gotta know somebody to be able to get on the water. But I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm looking forward to getting out and doing some fishing. You know, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, no, I definitely I know we had talked at one point. You guys don't necessarily know this, but I've been talking to Bobby about coming up and doing. He's been getting into truck camping.
Oh yeah.
I have had a dream to do. There's a reservoir up here that has completely national forest all the way around it, and I've been wanting to do a camp out there. So Nate says he's in too.
It'll be a party, man.
So
It'd be awesome.
he promised to get me on a striper if I can try to get him on a walleye in that place. So it's kind of a bet at this point.
Dude, if you've got walleye up there, like make sure to do it on a tournament month
Yep. Oh,
for
I'm gonna.
sure.
Oh, we're gonna do it in July. When? So May. So July, right?
July would be the one, yeah.
Yeah. So we can do it July because I'm
That's
thinking that's the
freaking
best
awesome.
time. I was told by a buddy that catches walleye there that April and July for some reason. I don't know
Yeah.
why those 2 months are the ones, but it's cool about that place is it's got smallmouth, largemouth, big perch, like big freaking perch. So it's
Tanks,
perfect
yeah.
for. So it's actually going to be funny if we can get all three of us there. It's going to make really good
Oh,
content
for sure it
because it's
will.
going to be me, you, and him. We're all in the Jigs and Bigs tournament. So you're
Yep.
going to hear like, ha ha, because we're going to beat each other on a perch. Because I'm telling you, the perch in there, that's why they actually use this as a walleye preserve.
Oh,
And it's
really?
because there's so many perch in there that are
Huh.
so big that they eat the perch. So they use it. So there's actually a slot limit on the walleye in there because they use that as like the preserve. It's literally all
Gotcha.
marked around it
Gotcha.
because they're trying to
Huh.
reintroduce them because honestly, fishermen have killed them here because they're so
Oh, I
good.
believe it. I believe it.
They're
Yeah.
too damn tasty and people fished them out. So
Yep.
they're trying to bring them back and they use
Yep.
this place to do it.
Yep.
And but yeah, there's huge perch. There's a abundant amount of smallmouth. They're just little, but they fight like they're. It's the funniest thing. They kind of remind me of like rock bass, but they have that smallmouth mentality where they want to do aerodynamically, like they go up.
They're
Like
just vicious as hell.
when you hook a
Yeah.
smallmouth in this place, their first reaction is I'm going to fly. So
Huh.
every time you catch one, crankbait, worm, doesn't matter. They're coming up.
They're coming up from below like a
And
great white
they're
shark eating a
launching.
seal.
They
That's wild.
shamu. I've literally had smallmouth in this place.
Yep.
Cast a Senko in. Didn't hit my spot. Screw it. When it burn it back, had him hit it on the surface. I
Oh
had
yeah.
one day literally hit it on the surface,
Yep.
miss it, and then shamu to get it because they bumped it into the air and then caught it and
Yeah.
hooked them. Like they're just that
That's lucky,
aggressive.
dude. That's awesome.
They're just that, and it was not. I mean, he was
Yeah.
little,
Yeah.
but it's
Well,
just like
that's the thing
it's
about
fun.
the small smallies. They are piss and vinegar. Like
Yep.
they fight like a son of a bitch.
Yep.
It's part of the reason why I like them so much. You know, like how can you catch a 10-inch fish and be like, wow, that was one hell of a fight? You know, throw it on medium light
Exactly.
gear. Oh wow, fantastic.
Yeah, you throw Yumdinger, Senko,
Little Ned
whatever
rigs.
on
Yeah.
Ned rigs with a spinning reel, and yeah,
Yep.
and I use like all my spinning stuff is I use high vis line and I use
Me
like
too.
10-pound test and I use
Yep.
a leader, and that's
Yeah.
what I do. So I'm using all my spinning stuff is finesse anyways,
Yep. Oh yeah.
but you'll think you have a big one on if you catch one
Yeah.
deep because they fight like there's a big one. Then you get them up on the
Oh, for
surface, and
sure.
then you're just skimming them across because then they've
Yep.
got no leverage on you. But yeah, they're
Yeah.
aggressive as hell.
My
But
favorite is when they get to the boat, then they just start digging down.
yep,
You know, that is my favorite. And like you talk drop shot fishing. I was in Champlain and I was with my dad and we were with this guy, Ian Molinauskas. And Ian has a cabin up on Champlain called the Bass Cabin.
okay,
And it happened to work out where there was a neighbor, I think, that had sold their house and they were having like the last little get together on the neighborhood before they left. And he asked, he's like, hey man, I'll take you guys out of my boat if you want to, you know, just hang out and you know, it's cool if I just grab a couch to sleep on that
right,
first night. I said, yeah, absolutely. That's perfect. We went out, we had a great day. I got on this one smallmouth in like, it was something like 40 feet water. And I'm not used to fishing like crazy deep like that, but I'm throwing a drop shot, tiny little bait fish presentation, and this thing just gets hammered. And you know, was able to finesse it back up, but the water was clear enough. The visibility was so good, I could see probably about maybe about 5-6 feet down, and I could see it down there. And then once it saw the boat, it was like bye, and just started
yep,
pulling drag straight down. It was like, oh, you're not done yet.
yep.
We got them. You know, it was good, but like I love smallmouth. I love fishing for smallmouth more than pretty much anything. Like if I have the choice to go to a smallmouth body of water, I'm going. You
Yeah.
know, I love big largemouth, but smallies they're my favorite.
The way I equate it is like smallmouth use their mass or smallmouth use their agility and
Yeah,
largemouth use their mass. So
yeah,
largemouth will just like pull. they're like almost dead weight in some cases until they get close to the surface. Whereas a smallmouth is going to, even if it hits the surface, it's going to try to walk on the surface to get
They're
back
just
into the water.
savage. Yeah.
Like they're always pissed off and
Yep.
they're just aggressive, and they will hit baits that they have no business hitting.
Oh yeah, I hear it all the time. People talk about, oh yeah, I want to downsize so that I can catch smallmouth with this. Are you
You don't need to.
crazy? They will eat. I mean, granted, I'm not saying that it can't happen, that, you got to
Yeah.
be cognizant of what you're throwing, and sometimes it makes more sense to throw treble
Yeah.
hook baits for them. But like they will hit stuff they have no business putting in their gullet,
Yeah, yeah,
you
like
know?
you're never gonna, you could not possibly swallow this bait. Like they'll hit, they remind me a
For
lot.
sure.
Rock bass are like that too. Like I feel like rock bass probably have the same type of
Yep.
genetic backup, but I don't know if they're on the same like strain of species, but they're the same way. You'll catch I've caught rock bass on like the big Chapo,
Oh yeah.
and you're
I
like,
believe it. I believe it, man.
what were you gonna do when you caught this? Like this is
Dude,
longer than you are, dude. Like,
I I was out fishing a spot with, a friend of the show, Josh Scaife, and, he catches some big fish. He's a big swim bait guy, and I told him, I
yeah,
was like, "Yeah, well, I gotta get out, fishing where you are." He's like, "Yeah, absolutely. I'll take you some of my spots." So we go to this one spot, and I was throwing pretty much all big baits for the most part.
yeah,
I threw a Bruce Gillis. I threw what else did I throw? I threw a big pompadour, and I got railed on that big pompadour. And this thing has giant treble hooks.
yeah.
And after like we looked at like all the fish that did get caught, there were so many rock bass in there, and some of these things had shoulders, like they were like 3 inches thick. It was
Yep.
crazy. So like they have no business, hitting a bait this size, but
Yep.
managed. Unfortunately, I think he shook off because that's a heavy ass bait. It really
Yeah.
is.
It's hard to
So
land them.
that kind of sucked. But I mean, some of these fish were just absolute giants. And rock bass are, some people hate rock bass. Like I know if you talk to anybody who fishes at like Winnipesaukee, they hate rock bass. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
it's such a pain in the ass. There's so many of them. It's true,
Yep.
but they're fun, and like if you're a multi-species angler and if you're in a
Exactly.
tournament like this, well, hey, have fun. You're catching
Yep.
them. At least they have a little value, a little bit.
My son has a spot on Lake Bomazene, so I found this spot. It's actually almost perfect. It's actually gonna be the spawning flat. So at the southern end of Lake Bomazene, it's sand all the way in.
Oh, okay.
But on the other side of the sand is milfoil. So it's
Okay.
literally like, it's like somebody took, and I think they dredge it, and I think that's why it's sand, because there's a lot
Could
of
be.
camps along that shoreline.
Is it a
But it's like,
beach?
it's not though. It's literally out probably 50, 60 yards, maybe even 100 yards into the water. It's all
Really?
sand and rock, but then there's like an edge, and then it's thick milfoil. So it's perfect
Yeah.
prime time bass place.
Sure.
But the problem is
Right on
they're
those weed lines and stuff,
right
for
on the
sure.
edge because they cruise that edge of that
Yeah.
grass and they eat all the rock bass. So the
Yep.
bass are in there and the rock bass are in there. But the problem is there's so many freaking rock bass in there
Yeah.
that I don't even fish it that much because it's every
Totally.
cast. It's like literally every
Oh yeah, I
cast with a
believe it.
crankbait, you're pulling it in. Got another one, got another one, got another one. And it's not even that it's fun, but like a lot of times I use one of my go-to baits is a small like Kitech style swim bait with like a belly
Yep.
weighted hook.
Sure.
Just weedless, it's easy to catch,
Yep.
anything on,
Oh yeah.
multi-species, whatever.
Yeah.
But the problem is the freaking rock bass eat the tails. So you
Yes.
go through a fucking pack of Kitechs every time you fish here
Yeah.
because they
Yep.
run up and catch just the tail. And then you basically, granted, what I do with mine is I use them as a drop shot bait after. It's a
Oh,
little pro tip
definitely.
there.
Yep.
They bite that boot tail off, and now that Kitech's now a drop shot bait for me
Yeah. There you
because it's
go.
basically a small, style bait like
Oh
that.
yeah.
That works really well.
Mhm.
But still, you
Awesome,
go
man.
through a pack of baits that you spent $8 on for a
Yeah.
rock bass gets a little aggravating. So I can
For
see why
sure.
people
Yeah, yeah,
get
yeah.
mad at them.
Yeah, but I mean, even like small largemouth. Like I fished a pond not that long ago with my buddy, the guy I went to Chickamauga with, and
Yep,
this is a local pond that has a reputation of just being hot garbage, and
yep,
it is so stunted. Like these fish were like twins, every single
yep.
one. It was just the same size, same exact size,
I've
same
got
exact size. And we go and we're throwing around. I think I was throwing around flukes, and I'm not sure. He was probably throwing around like a whopper plopper. And I think I caught like 17 or 18 largemouth,
Yep.
all the same size, probably all nibblers, like 11-inch, 12-inch.
Yep.
And all of these fish were like, it was to the point where it was like almost annoying, because you're like, all right, cool, release this one. Cool. I'm going to fish this grass here. Oh, look,
Yep.
another 12-inch nibbler.
Yep.
I catch a pickerel and I was just like, holy shit, that's so interesting.
The video
It's crazy.
I released a short not long ago, but where I
Yep.
caught the 2 fish on the lipless.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a place that's just like that, only it's 17.5-inch clones.
Yep.
So every bass in there is 17.5 inches.
Yeah.
Like you could literally, like, I think it's like one gene pool. Like it's just
Oh,
that funny.
I
Like they
wouldn't doubt
look
it,
the
man.
same. They're
Yeah.
the same build. It's because there's
Yeah.
not enough food in there. And
That's
what's funny
exactly it.
about it is, like
They're
you said,
overpopulated. Yeah.
Vermont, we're famous for fly fishing. Well, what do fly
Yep.
fishermen target the most? Trout.
Trout.
So what is fishing game stock? Trout. But this place has
Yeah.
so many bass in it, they've upped the limit to 5.
Oh,
And nobody eats bass. So it
yeah.
doesn't matter. Who
Yeah,
cares?
exactly.
Right? But the
Exactly.
thing is, there's 17-inch clones all day long, and no one fishes for them because it's a
Yep.
trout lake. And when they throw the stalker trout in there, they're just feeding the bass.
Oh, that's my favorite, man. I love fishing a pond that has a respectable, um, what do you call it? Like a respectable population of largemouth, and that's been stocked with rainbows. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep.
Because then it's like, that's like I have a rainbow trout jerkbait that I love for specifically that situation.
Yep.
Especially like in a little colder water or something like that. Like they get accustomed to that diet. Those trout eaters are significant. That's one of the things that I actually this year I kind of want to fool around with a little bit is some of the jig style plastic, like 8 and 10-inch plastic swim baits in the
Yep.
trout style.
Yep.
Because we have so many bodies of water here that get stocked routinely.
It's the only place that I really use a lot of white because of that, because it
Yeah.
has that trout profile.
Yep.
I actually I pour my own plastics with a do-it molds,
Yep.
and I'll make literally like white with black fleck swim
Yeah.
baits for that
Oh,
body
yeah.
of water
You know,
because they'll eat 'em.
what the number one bait that I caught from all my trout last year on?
But
A Ned rigged 2.5-inch Kitech.
yep.
Yep,
Yep.
just slayed it. I mean, I wasn't targeting them, but all the trout that I caught, that's what they all laid. I caught my first brown that way,
Yep.
right after I caught a great smallie up in the Housatonic, and that's what I was targeting, were smallies, and I was like, "Holy shit, we're Brown Town. This is amazing."
So I never realized this. So the longer you do this sport, and anybody who's getting into bass fishing, there's a mental progression. And that's actually why I want to promote like small, like the multi-species tournaments and stuff, is when you get into bass fishing or targeting a specific species of
Yeah,
fish, you start to put the parts together. So I discovered the swim bait because I fish a lot of grass, and
yep,
treble hooks suck in grass. It's a pain in the butt. Even with
yep,
a square bill, you still end up spending more time picking salad out of your freaking bait than you
yeah.
do fishing.
Your
So I
best
started,
friend is a lipless if you're
yep,
throwing in grass. Your best
exactly.
friend.
So I started fishing lipless and I started fishing belly weighted swim baits. Well, my
Yeah,
favorite color is Pro Blue Shiner
yeah,
in the Kitex. And I never made the connection
yeah,
until last year why that one works everywhere. I'm in a fucking trout state.
yeah,
That's a fucking baby trout. That's a
yeah,
stalker trout
yeah,
color. It's got
yeah.
a blue
Pretty much.
back. It's got a
Yep,
blue gray back and a
yep,
white belly with a
yeah.
little bit of fleck in it. It's
Dark
literally a
that
baby
dark
trout.
top with the light bottom. It's huge, man.
It's a trout profile.
You
So
know?
that's why they hit them. And they
Oh,
hit them, hard. And the thing is, what's funny about those little Kitex is, like, I will admit, you have me convinced on the swim bait deal. We had talked about it in your podcast about how
oh
you would
yeah.
definitely work them.
Yep.
And I actually have a custom order into eBay,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking about having him make me in that same color pattern one of those smaller, like the $30 swim bait that he sells, that smaller jointed
Oh yeah.
one that he has,
Is
because
that like the jointed crappie or the jointed bluegill?
the blue and jointed bluegill.
Yeah.
So the color that I want to make is it's a color that Bandit used to make. So I
Yep.
discovered this bait completely by accident. My wife's favorite color is purple. So I bought a square bill called a viral perch.
Uh-huh.
It's got a purple back with like little lines down the side of it and a
Yep.
chartreuse belly.
Nice.
and it's
Love
got a
that. Love
red
that
like
color.
spot right here.
Yep.
Smallmouth love it. Largemouth destroy it.
Yep.
They discontinued the color.
Of course they did.
And
You
now
want
I'm
to have
at a
them do
point.
this color?
So I'm actually sending pictures. I literally took a bait and I was like, and then I sent him the like stock photo and I'm
Yep.
like, can you make me this? Are you going to get in trouble or whatever? But ultimately, I'm like, can you replicate this? But I want it in a lipless because they never made it in a lipless.
Oh yeah.
And for smallmouth, they like those bright chartreuse, like those purples,
Yeah.
those reds. So I have them doing that, but I'm thinking about having them do one of those bluegill swim baits with that.
Oh, for sure, dude. Bluegill swim baits are it's a must have. Like I've got a is it Fish Lab? I think it's Fish Lab that I have. I have one that's a suspending. It's a three. I think it's got 3 joints, and this thing is awesome. And then I've got a couple. One of them might be a Savage that are the plastic style,
Yep.
where they have a belly weighted hook that goes like a jig hook that goes up in there that's belly weighted,
Yep.
and everything is tucked right in there. You want to talk about great for grass? Like
Yeah.
I have thrown. There's this one tiny pond near me. Like this is what I would call, if I had to call this my local pond, this is where I go all the time, and I have caught more 16-inch fish plus out of this body
Yep.
of water than anything else. It is great. I don't know if it's just not so populated because they don't stock it with trout or anything. It doesn't
Right.
get a ton of pressure. I don't think very many people keep what they get, but it's in a state park.
Yep.
And I have gone out and thrown that swim bait right in like just the heaviest of grass. And
Yep.
I don't even have to throw it on my swim bait rod. I mean, I think it's 3/4 ounce. Like I can throw it on a
Yeah.
heavy rod,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
fine. But this thing is just awesome. Throw it on in the grass with braid, cut it out if I need it. But it's also really good for if you're bed fishing,
Yep.
throw a bluegill swim bait in there. They get pissed.
Dude, so bed fishing last year I missed it.
Yep.
So unfortunately, because I can only fish weekends,
Yeah,
there's like
that's tough.
perfect timing. I always miss it. I always seem to like miss it. And I'm actually probably gonna like kind of keep my ear to the listening to what's going on and try to
Yeah.
maybe play
If
hooky
they're
on a
on
day where they hit
beds.
it. Because I found a lot of beds last year
Yep.
post spawn. Like they had already spawned, but I found fucking miles of beds in a
Oh
bunch
yeah.
of the different spots that I fish.
Yep.
And I, like you said, you drop anything that's a bluegill profile, like a gilly is another one. It's a really
Oh
good
yeah.
bed
Yeah.
fishing bait.
That's freaking fantastic.
That you drop that on there, and the funny part is they're not actually trying to eat it. That's what people don't realize. They're not
No.
eating that. They're trying
That's
to
what
pick it
makes it
up
so
and throw it
frustrating.
away.
Yeah, exactly.
So
It's
they'll
all
suck it
about
in, and then
yeah.
they won't even close their mouth almost. It's like they're like hovering it inside their mouth
Yeah,
because they'll suck in water and they'll swim a few feet off the bed and they'll and blow it back out. They're like, get
exactly.
away from my bed.
Yep. It was only when was it? Like late July or early August that I started throwing small like 3.3 and 3.8-inch Kitex
Yep.
on an open hook
Yep.
jig head, like just a ball head jig, real
Yep.
simple. And this year, I think that having that open hook will actually lead to way more
Yep.
hookups.
Yep.
Especially for bed fishing, because you're not throwing in like heavy cover. You can see them right there, and if they're going to get it, that hook is exposed. I
What's
mean,
surprising to me is, and I always had this mentality like that's gonna get hung up in the grass. I'm not gonna throw that. It actually
yeah,
doesn't. The
it's not that bad.
upward bend isn't that bad. It's the downward bend that's the problem.
And absolutely, you can lose them. It's going to
Yeah.
happen. You know what I mean? But what you're throwing is just a real simple jig head that's cheap with a soft plastic of your choice.
Yep.
And like you're going to lose some, awesome, but you're trying to catch bigs.
You know what's
That's what
funny is
happens.
my dad. So my dad, I told him about the Kitech thing. I was like, hey,
Yep.
we're gonna go to this body of water, and this is a place where I feel like I have an ego. There's a couple of bodies of water that are close to my house that like I know I can catch fish there. Like
Yeah.
honestly, I don't even fish them a lot. It's like when I need to make a video and I want to test. Like if I buy those swim baits from eBay,
That's a good place to test
I'm
them
gonna go
because
test them
where
because I
yeah.
know where the fish are and I
Yep.
know what
Yeah.
colors they like. And for guys that don't know eBay or anything, I'm gonna put a link to them down in the show notes.
Yep.
Check them out. Like if you're looking for custom painted baits, they are beautiful.
Oh
And the
yeah.
price, honestly, I don't know how he does it
Yeah. They're
because he's
fantastic.
selling
And
something that should be $90 for 30.
He's also selling, like, his jerk baits and his deep cranks and even his lipless and everything. They're all like the real deal
Yeah,
plug. Like,
yeah,
they're the real
yeah.
deal.
Oh yeah, I bought a bunch of them, but I want to try to test those baits out. But this is a place where I was like, all you need to do is take a belly weighted hook
Yep.
and put a Kitech on it. And he goes,
Yeah.
okay, weighted hook. My dad literally fishes his Kitex with a tube head. Doesn't he didn't even know that that wasn't what you do with it. So he takes a tube, like
Yep.
the actual tube hook, and
Yeah.
then just slides the Kitech up against the end of the tube, the weight, and then fishes them like that.
Huh.
So it's almost like a Ned rigged swim bait, the way
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
because of
That
that
makes
long
sense.
elongated like head.
Yep.
But it's got that long piece of lead on the end of it.
Yeah.
But he fishes them like that, and he catches all kinds of fish on 'em. I'm like,
No
"Dad, I
shit.
use the belly weighted ones for weedlessness." And he's like, "No, I just use these." He's
Yeah.
like, "I thought this is what you said." And I was like,
I mean, they'll
"Okay."
work. That's the thing. They
Yeah.
will work.
And that's what
It's
it is.
jig heads specifically, like swim bait jig heads. It's one of those things where every time I go out and I'm buying gear, I'm adding more to my terminal tackle
Yep.
box.
Yep.
I'm just doing it.
The thing with terminal is it's versatile. Like those ones that
Yes.
the stand-up heads that Fresh Baits recommends.
Oh yeah.
So I've used those as like a Ned rig, and they do actually work really well, but they cast a little weird. And
Yeah.
that's the problem I have with them is they will helicopter
Yeah.
because the way the weight is shifted. But there's a lot of different baits that I've literally started experimenting with plastics because honestly, I can make my own.
Yeah.
So I
Exactly.
start doing weird terminal rigging
With
because
these
it's cheaper.
plastics.
I don't have to buy a
Exactly.
$12 bait. I
Yep.
could buy a $6 pack of hooks and then do different weird rigs.
Yep.
Because the other thing I do in my kayak, which is actually kind of nice, it's a little cheat code, is I'll pre-rig like Carolina rigs with a barrel swivel or pre-rig. I've actually pre-rigged drop shot rigs where I literally put the double-ended barrel swivel on it
Yep.
so that I
And
can
that's
just
what that's
tie
what you're
that to
tying
my
on.
line.
Yeah.
So then I don't have to tie a whole drop shot setup
Yep.
on the end of
You
my
have one
line.
ready to
I can
go.
just tie it to the barrel swivel,
Yep. That's a
and
good
then I
idea.
have so you can do like a Carolina rig, you can do a Texas rig. So if you do a longer
Yep.
one, you can do a Texas rig with the weight and the
Yep.
slide on it, and then you don't have to like cut a piece of leader, tie your connection knot. I
Yeah.
tie it to the double, like the small, like really,
Yep.
really tiny ones. And then I just tie polymer on one side and a polymer on the other side. And then I
Yep.
just drop it on so you can change out techniques without having to have a whole different setup every time.
Yeah, exactly.
And like you said, terminal is, and then what I do is I use packing foam when I get packages from Amazon and I
Oh
hook it
yeah.
into that and then I just wrap it around it.
That's a good idea.
Because then you can kind of keep it contained. Because that's the only thing about tying
Exactly.
those pre-tied leaders is they get knotted and
If
balled
they're
up and
loose,
shit.
yeah, exactly. You don't want them, in the truck moving around. They're gonna get all
Yeah.
jostled. Putting them
But
around
yeah,
something to keep them.
I just use
That's
that
a
like
really good idea, dude.
weird black foam, and then you just hook it into it, wrap it around, and then you can
Yeah.
have like a Carolina rig, a Texas rig, a drop shot. Drop shot's a little hard because of the way you really should have it go through the hook, and then you have
Yeah.
to have it like it's a little bit long to try to wrap
Yeah. Oh
up.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. I just tie my stuff if I need to. I'm like,
yeah,
ugh, I'm gonna put a bunch of leader, and I do. This is like the mistake that everybody says don't do it, but I'll put like 14 foot of leader on my spinning gear,
yep,
like 2 rod lengths. I'll put it on
yep,
there because I'm like, if I'm cutting off a Ned or I break off and I got to tie on something else,
yep,
I don't want to have to tie another leader if I don't
yep.
have to. In fact, I often will bring multiple finesse combos for different uses,
I
like,
bring two, and I actually this year. So
yeah.
what I'm doing this year is a lesson I learned from. Well, actually, I kind of adapted a Sean the fisherman technique.
Yeah.
So I don't have multiple spools, but I have backup
Okay.
reels.
Yeah. See, that's what I do.
So I pre-wrap a reel. Like I have a bunch of like, and
Yeah.
I before you think I'm like this rich fisherman, my backup reels are Abu Garcia Black
Yeah,
Maxima for like
exactly. Same thing,
40
man,
bucks.
But, like, you're like,
So
"Oh, shit, I need something that's got, somewhere between 15 and 20-pound
yep,
fluoro. Okay, I've got this. I can work
yep,
with this." Or,
yep,
lots of times what I'll do is on those backup reels, I will put braid, and then I have a
yep.
variety of other stuff where I'll just tie a leader if I need to, that way I
See,
can get it to work.
it's funny. I don't have a single reel that doesn't have braid on it. All my reels have braid.
Yeah.
and then I run
See,
a
I'm
little
not
leader
like
on them.
that at all. I do most of my reels have fluorocarbon except for my like my frog and buzzbait bait caster. That's got braid on it. My both of all my spinning reels all have I always go braided leader with my spinning stuff. It's
See,
just a preference of mine.
it's what it is I would love to, but I cast too hard.
Gotcha.
I've learned this about me. I've tried it, and I've spent
Yep.
$30 to have to cut it all out with scissors later. Because I will tell you, braid, you can sometimes pick out that backlash. You get a good backlash of fluorocarbon,
Dude, I was on
not coming out.
Chick. I was on Chick. This is like our third spot. And I was throwing this is like kind of my moneymaker combo for moving baits. And I had 14-pound fluoro on here. We had just spooled up these reels like right beforehand. You know what that means? You're gonna backlash a little bit till you kind of get
Absolutely.
it worked out and everything. So I'm like,
Yep.
okay, all right, that's cool. And I got one that was just terrible. It was terrible. And then we happened to be doing a long run. And I said, look, while we're doing this run, I'm gonna pick this thing out.
Yep.
And my buddy Paul knew. He's like, he's gonna get it. He's gonna get it. And then Caleb was looking at us like, this jabroni doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Who are these guys? These
Yep.
idiots. I got it.
Dude, I've gotten some. You feel that honestly, it becomes a like OCD thing.
It does.
Like
Yep.
I literally have had, and that's actually why I started carrying backup reels because when I fish
Yeah.
tournaments,
Yep.
I'll just pull that reel and put a different one on.
Yeah.
But I will try to pick it out when I get home. Like I will
Well,
sit
and
there
that's
watching
that's
TV, screwing with it,
exactly.
trying to get it to
And
fix.
that's what I did. I was like, this is so bad. I'm reeling this up. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna leave it as
Yep.
is. We'll figure it out. But I knew we were doing a big run to another spot. And I was like, I
Yep.
got time. I'm gonna go ahead and start
Yep.
picking this out. And I
Yeah,
got it.
I've literally done that. I'll do that when I'm like, my wife actually laughs at me because I'll sit here at my desk,
Yep.
and my TV's right here, and I'll literally have my rods and I'll be tying leaders, fixing backlashes, pulling sections of line out that are frayed and cutting them off and retying stuff on. And I'll do that a lot because it's like that time, like you said, when you work a full-time job and you're always on the go. I get everything prepped the night before I go fishing, but a lot of times
Oh
I'll
yeah.
prep like Wednesday or Thursday. I'll start putting line on or adjusting stuff, and so. But
That's awesome, dude.
yeah, no,
That
it's
is freaking
definitely
awesome.
we're definitely gonna do. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna end up buying a Massachusetts like full season fishing license.
I would.
I want to ask you, how does that
Yeah.
work with like the brackish? Do I have to have like an international license, or is there a special license to fish both like
No.
salt
No,
stuff,
no,
or is
no.
it just a
Yeah.
regular marine license?
I think you're good. There might be a
Okay,
stamp for the canal.
okay.
I forget. I forget. But I mean,
Because I know
generally
like the
speaking,
Hudson has like you have to have a stamp or some freaking thing to fish that,
yeah.
but yet
You might want to look into it because, like, I have never fished for striper out at the Cape. I
okay,
never have. I've lived here. I've lived in Massachusetts my entire life, and the only time I've ever fished for striper has been in the Connecticut River when they're migrating.
gotcha.
That's it. So I haven't run into that situation, but from what I think your typical like fishing license will cover it.
Okay. Yeah,
You
because
should
I
be
was
good.
thinking I'm gonna buy a season because Nate had already offered to take me
Oh
out.
yeah,
And Nate, like, to be honest, if you don't understand some of these names, but like he doesn't realize that he fishes with like kayak fishing royalty. But
sure.
the
Oh, he
guys to
knows.
him,
He knows.
he name drops like he'll be like, yeah, man, if we when the stripers come in, man, I go out there with like Ken and I'm like Ken Wood, like Joe
Yeah,
Dale, like you're going
yeah,
fishing with who?
yeah.
I'm like, wait, you're fishing with who? He's like, yeah, we get on stripers, and I'm like, what? Like, he's like, those are the guys that he fishes with, so he
Oh
probably
yeah.
somewhat nonchalantly says their names, but I'm like, that's like the, you know, top 10 KBF list.
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like,
They're
but I
killing it.
want to try to
You
get
know.
a season with them. I want to come down there. I want to honestly,
Yep.
I've I wanted I want to get into bank fishing. So I started out bank fishing. Like that's how I started as a
I think
kid.
most everybody does. Yeah.
My dad was a big time salmon fisherman. So we did the
Yep.
deep sea trolling style
Oh
trout
yeah.
salmon. But I, as a kid, used to ride my bike like 15 miles with a backpack and a tackle box and a backpack and go catch bullhead, bluegill, all that crap. So
Oh hell
like
yeah.
that was my intro to it, and I just got away from it. And then when I got the kayak, it was just like I never really do it. But I think for me,
Yeah.
I don't think I would do it by myself.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think I need a partner or someone to go with me
Yep.
because I get bored really quickly if I'm
Oh, for
not like
sure.
having a good day.
Well,
And
and
it's
then also, like, if you're going somewhere that you're not familiar with, like, it can be sketchy. Like, I do a lot of
right.
urban fishing, you know,
Okay.
and that can get real sketchy fast. I got a good
Yeah.
story for you. Are you familiar at all with Holyoke, where I live?
A little bit. Yeah.
So Holyoke is kind of famous for having this like canal system that comes off the
Right.
Connecticut River. It was used during, the industrious days of the town and or of the city. And it was, this is how they moved things around from one plant to another and ship things all over the place. It's kind of amazing. And now they just kind of sit unused. Like, you'll get somebody
Yep.
might throw like a shopping cart or something in there, like
Right.
whatever.
Yep.
And I've heard from many people that there are fish in there, and there's only happened, was it twice? I think it was twice. I have caught a smallie out of there.
Yep.
And one time there was this is going to get very not safe for work. Just a heads up to your viewers. Uh, so buckle up. We're getting into Jigs and Bigs territory.
Nice.
There was a guy. So I was throwing a 6 cents divine swim jig, right?
Okay. Yep.
And I jack this fish. I was like, holy shit. I saw him come out from underneath a rock and grab my jig and he starts running with it. I jack that freaking rod back and I got him. I'm reeling him in and I'm up probably about 15, 17 feet above the water. And I'm reeling him up, reeling him up, reeling him up. He's coming up to the bridge. I grab him, and there's people standing there on the other side. There was like a food truck, and it might have been like a farmer's market or something down
Okay.
further down the street. And I let out this like Mike Iaconelli, fuck yeah, fucking crazy loud.
Yep.
Well, there was a homeless dude behind one of the old factory buildings there that was, we'll just say he was a little more excited about that fish than I
Oh.
was.
Okay.
Yeah, he was pulling some "It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia" shit, if you know what I mean. And I was like, "What the fuck? Are you kidding me?" So I released the fish. I got pictures of it. Oh, it was absolutely unbelievable. It was so nice because I have friends that are like, "Yeah, we saw you, Bobby, fishing the canal. Like, what are you doing down there?" I was like, "I know that there's fish in here, and when I only have maybe 60 minutes and I got to go to
Go
work right
walking.
afterwards, this is nice and easy. I'll go and I'll try and catch them there." But and this
Yeah.
is
So
probably, yeah,
I learned something about bass biology the other day, and I was actually watching this like whole thing about bass. And honestly, I always wondered this, and it makes more sense. So bass eggs don't get digested by birds.
really.
So that's how they end up in these fucking golf course ponds and like these
Gotcha.
and
I
sewer
guess it makes
drains
sense.
and shit because the bass eggs will get eaten by birds that'll swim down and eat them off the surface if they float up. And if they're fertilized and then they shit in the water,
Makes
they
sense.
hatch. Now, granted, there's not going to be a diverse species because you're going to have an inbreeding situation because all the bass in there are from the same gene pool. But that's how you get bass in some of these obscure ponds that you're like, how did fish get here?
How
There's
did
no
fish ever
inlet.
get in here? I guess that makes sense too, because I've heard stories from people that are like, "Oh, I fished this retention pond at the
Yep.
mall,"
Yep.
and I guess it does make sense.
So I found that out in the
Huh.
biology of bass, and I was like, because I always wondered, I'm like, are fucking golf courses stocking their pond? Like,
No,
why?
definitely not. Yeah.
But they're in there, so how did they get in there? Did fishermen throw 'em? And to be honest, that happens too.
Oh,
Fishermen do
sure.
dumb shit and throw. I mean, there's actually a lake in New York called Shea Z,
Yep.
and it's a literally it was just a flooded like basically hole in the ground that they made a
Yep.
lake, and it became like almost a private lake, but it has a public ramp, and somebody put pike in there,
Oh, okay.
and New York literally built this thing to be a rainbow trout lake.
Buy rainbow trout.
So it's funny. It's the weirdest place you've ever fished. You'll catch huge pike
Oh, I
because
believe it.
there's literally little largemouth, rainbows, and pike.
Yep.
That's all that's in here.
Jeez.
So the pike have zero competition
Yeah,
after they
nothing at
get
all. Yep.
over 12 inches. There's nothing that's going to contend with them.
Yeah.
And you catch a pike there, and they're huge, and nobody fishes for them because they only want the trout.
Yeah.
And the locals, I've never seen locals hate a species of fish more in my life. You literally will catch a pike, and if there's anyone on shore that sees you, they'll say, "Kill that thing!"
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I've literally had people be like, "Throw that fucking thing on the shore," and I'm like, It's a 30-inch pike. I'm not throwing this on shore because I
Yeah.
appreciate this fish.
We have a body of water over here where I guess for one reason or another, they stocked it at one time to control some population.
Yep.
And they stocked it with bowfin. And bowfin are
Ooh.
all over the place in here. They're all over the place. Last spawn, I saw, mommy or daddy bowfin, guarding these bowfin fry up in the shallows. I caught my first bowfin there. That's part of the reason why I dedicated so much time to this spot was
I'm
because I knew they
coming.
were there.
I'm coming to visit you because that's on my
Oh,
bucket list fish to
hell yeah,
catch.
dude. It's awesome. But I remember the first time I ever realized that they were in there, I saw one cruising in the shallows. And there was this one dude, this drunk asshole, who's just he goes and he's a white bucket brigade. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Shows
Yep.
up, takes way beyond his limit, fish that don't make the cut, eats whatever it is. And then he goes, I'm looking at this. I was like, huh, I go, is that a bowfin? So I shout out to these two guys. I was like, yeah, is that a bowfin? I was like, are they in here? And he was like, oh, yeah, they stocked it back, whatever. If you catch it, you got to kill it.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, whatever, buddy. That shit ain't happening. Uh, they're amazing fish. They
Yeah.
fight like pit bulls. They're
Well,
amazing.
their body is designed to fight. They're a lot like a
Oh
pike
yeah.
where they're the same width all the way through. So they do that like this thing. I don't know what the hell this is called, but like pike do the same thing where they curl their whole body to pull the like pickerel do it a lot too. When you get them close, they'll like fold their body in half to push off, which makes it so hard to fight them.
They're a bunch of piss and vinegar, man. It
Yep.
is it is crazy. But I caught one. It was a small one. It was 18 inches, but I was so freaking stoked.
Check. Yeah, it's
Yep.
another
I was
checklist.
so stoked.
Yeah, I'm trying to collect more species this year. I want to try to catch a trout for my kayak, which I've never done. I've only caught them trolling.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to try to catch. I'd love to catch a muskie, but they don't really have them here. They've started stocking them, but they're not really a thing.
Yeah.
Bowfin is definitely one of them, and a
Oh,
striper.
for sure. Yeah.
Which, to be honest, most of those are going to be your guys' waters.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Probably.
We don't have striper here, so because we
Oh,
don't have
yep.
any ocean for them to go to. So
Yeah.
so
No, that's awesome. I mean, I suppose there could be some that go up the Connecticut.
I've been told
Yeah.
that the northern, like up by the New Hampshire border, we
Yeah.
have accesses that kind of parallel the New Hampshire ramps.
Yeah.
And I've been told that there's some that do come all the way up, but it's not as common as like
Yeah.
being able to just come down there where they run. So,
Oh yeah. That makes
but
sense.
well, all
This
right,
is
we're
awesome,
at
dude.
like an hour and 17 minutes. I'm gonna be respectful of Bobby's time. I know he's probably got 17 podcasts and 15 interviews to edit, so I'm gonna cut it short right here, guys. But I want to thank everyone for coming along with me. If you have not checked out the Jigs and Bigs podcast, let me tell you, I'm all the way up to about halfway through the 2020 season, and I'm still listening. So
Oh,
he
holy
has a
shit.
video every week. He has an episode pretty much every week, if not bonus episodes. He has a Patreon, so you can actually be a jig head, which
Yep.
I signed up to be a jig head.
Yep.
But I actually signed up this week. And this tournament series, guys, if you want to
It's
get
a
into
blast.
tournaments, you want to do something, just honestly get your kids involved. You want to get them a little competition in their life. You want to
Yep.
just do something that's a little bit competitive but not super intense. I highly recommend this tournament series. You'll find
Yeah.
yourself at the bank desperately trying to catch a bullhead or a perch, and it will be a lot of fun. So I
Yeah.
highly
Mix it
recommend
up.
doing that.
Gamify
So
your fishing, man.
exactly. So guys, just check out Jigs and Bigs, check out everything about it, hit that podcast up, hit that tournament series, and we're gonna cut it right here. But again, I want to thank everyone who sat and listened to us ramble about fishing for an hour and 20
It's the way it
minutes.
works. I love it.
And yeah, so thanks guys.
This was awesome. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it.
No problem.